Hello, I'm Mike O'Connor, and I'm a storyteller and fiddle player, and I live in St Irvine in Cornwall. I first came to Cornwall in 1969. I've been here ever since, and I'm not about to move. In early 19th century Cornwall, there was a group of storytellers that got known as Droll tellers, and these were people that moved from place to place telling stories. Now, this is before the days of the television or the radio, or even much in the way of newspapers. And so, when the Droll teller came, this was something exciting. He had the news, he had the gossip, and he had stories. And perhaps he played a musical instrument as well, and so he had tunes, and so he could have a dance. So the arrival of the Droll teller was something that was really special. One of the Droll tellers that we know most about was a gentleman called Anthony James. Come the summertime, he would cross the River Tamar and travel the length and breadth of Cornwall, telling stories and playing his fiddle. And we know that one of his favourite stories was a tale called Lootie and the Mermaid. Now, it wasn't in my time, and it wasn't in your time, but it was in somebody's good Cornish time. There was a man called Lootie, and he lived near the Lizard. And one day he went down for a walk on the beach, accompanied by his dog Venture. And when he was down on the beach, he heard something he'd never heard before. It was a crying, a keening, a weeping, a wailing. It was the sound of a woman in great distress, but he couldn't see anything at all. But in the middle of the beach there were some rocks and some rock pools, and so the sound seemed to come from there, so he went in that direction. And when he got there, in one of the rock pools, he saw there was a young woman. When she saw him, she slid below the water. He thought, no, she's drowned because of me. But then gradually, the young lady surfaced, and as she came up out of the water, Lootie perceived it was no ordinary young woman. It was, in fact, a mermaid, and she was weeping her eyes out. "What on earth is the matter?" said Lootie. She said, "I was so fascinated by your world, by the sounds, by the sights, by the scents. I wanted to experience it for myself, so I came as close as I could. But then I found that the tide had gone out and I'm marooned." And Lootie said, "Well, that's no bother. The tide will be in a few hours. You can swim back out again." She said, No. When my husband comes back from fishing and finds that I'm not here, I'll be in the most terrible trouble." And Lootie said, Well, I could pick you up and I could carry you back out to the sea." "Oh no, you mustn't touch me," he said. "If you touch me, then you're doomed." And she slid back below the water, weeping and wailing some more. And Lootie thought, well, I can't be doing with this. And so he reached down and he picked her up and started carrying her towards the sea. At first she was heavy, and at first he struggled. But then with every step that he took towards the sea, she grew a little bit lighter. And with every step, then it seemed that her embrace around his neck was just a little bit closer. And by the time they touched the water, he was enjoying the experience, and she was saying, "Lootie, you could come with me. You could come to my land beneath the sea. There are sights you've never seen before. There are wonderful castles and palaces." And by now the water was up to Lootie's knees, and he was thinking this sounded a really good idea, when suddenly the spell was broken. There on the waterline, there was Venture, his dog, barking his heart out. And Lootie immediately threw the mermaid into the deep water. "Begone," he said. And she rose up out of the water. She said, "Lootie, you've been kind to me. I will grant you 3 wishes. Think carefully what they might be." And Lootie said, "Well, I would love to be able to undo the evil spells of wicked people." "Granted," she said. "What else?" I would love to have a healing touch so I could heal those people that are ill." "It is granted." And he said, "For my 3rd wish, I would like that to be passed on to my children and their children for generations to come." "So be it," she said, "and because you have been so selfless in your wishes, I grant you 9 years, but then you will be mine." The next morning, Looty opened his eyes in the cave. He was still in a daze, and that was where his wife found him. "Oh, are you the mermaid? Come for me," he said. "Don't be daft," she says. "I'm your wife. Come home and have some breakfast." And so he went home, and he explained everything that had been going on. And do you know, from that moment, it seemed that he could detect when people have been ill-wished, and he could overcome those spells. And also, he had the healing touch in his hands. But 9 years later, on a perfectly calm, moonlit night, he was out fishing with two of his friends. And suddenly, from nowhere, in the middle of the ocean, there came a great wave, and in the middle of the wave, there was the mermaid. Looty stood up in the stern of the boat. He said, "The hour is come, but not yet the man." And he stepped out of the boat and into the mermaid's arms and disappeared forever. And do you know, from that day onwards, his children, they had that healing touch as well, and became renowned throughout the west of Cornwall as healers. But also, from that day onwards, every 9 years, the sea would come and claim one of them for its own.
I thought the animations were very good.